we have to talk about some of these things we see in our chat sessions or comments of our YouTube videos. We do encourage people to comment. You know what? You can even do your example of trolling to a degree, but when it completely gets off topic and it's no longer relevant, you're not making a point. Why even go back and forth? There's too much energy being wasted, and who cares? If you're going to go back and forth and troll and you know what you're talking about, you're kind of throwing trolling in there as a sidebar, we can deal with it. But when you just say nonsense because you're either emotional or you're emotional, then it becomes redundant and it becomes worthless and no need to have you there. And the point I'm bringing up is when we bring up our boxing, when we talk about boxing, there's always more people commenting on the boxing than anything else that we put out there. And I understand how visceral a sport boxing can be because you have fanboys, you have boxing fans, and you have fans of boxing. And there's a difference between the two. Fans of boxing, they have their guy, but they respect the sport enough to give respect to the people who deserves it. They probably troll them every now and then, and it's all banter and it's cool. But then you have boxing fans who have their specific boxer, and regardless of what he does, kind of like cultish behavior. And I think that Berlanga said it, or somebody mentioned it about. Matter of fact, it was Benavidez mentioning it about Canelo. He has cultish fans. He just said that. Those are the types of people I'm talking about. And not throwing shit at Canelo. I just use that as an example from another boxer. But those people who look at their one guy and they can't get off of it, and they become irrational, so they just start saying stuff. It doesn't have to make sense. It just has to be, it just needs oxygen, a little bit of fire, and they'll just say it.
Look, we both welcome feedback. We want feedback. But just keep in mind, facts, not feelings, all right? I don't come out here with my feelings. I see things, I observe things, I speak on them, I give my opinion. Whether you agree with it or you don't agree with it, that's how I see it. That's what I share. I don't say, well, I feel, or this makes me feel like this and that. Yo, if I say X, Y, Z, and those are the facts, don't come and tell me, well, I don't know what I'm talking about. And that's all you have to say. Tell me why I don't know what I'm talking about. Dispute the facts. But I know why you don't. Because you can't. Because it's facts. Facts, not feelings.
Yep, and then you have some people who come on. I remember just this past weekend, Isaac Cruz, Pitbull Cruz, lost his fight to Rayo Venezuela. And then you get somebody. We had talked about it before the fight came on, but we didn't really hit on it. But I do remember before the fight started, I sent you a message of I think that Pitbull is going to lose his fight because I'm thinking about the Giovanni Cabrera fight before that he had, and he had problems with the movement. Now you had Rayo, who had some pop, had some skills, and he was a southpaw that moved and had those measurables in terms of being long-armed and taller, and he used it to his advantage, and he ended up winning the fight. We get somebody who ends up coming on, and they wanted to send a message, and their message was, you really didn't know who Rayo was until this fight, so chillax with Pitbull being exposed. You just didn't know Rayo was able to pull off the upset. The one-trick pony still is able to knock out. The resume speaks for itself. But anyway,
I find it hilarious that somebody's trying to tell you and or me what we've seen before. Because when you send me that message, I replied, Rayo's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like I was agreeing with you. So obviously I saw him fight before.
This is the guy, though. This is what this guy decided to say because this is what this guy just wants to say. He doesn't have to know anything. He doesn't even have to listen to what we had said before in the past. I think it's irrelevant if he did. But for him to just come out, sight unseen, to say something like this because he doesn't like that it was said or he doesn't like the way it was phrased either in the thumbnail or if he had watched the video, he didn't like the way the conversation went. And this is what he comes up with. This is what I'm talking about. People who just say things because oxygen's free, not because they have brain cells they want to put together and make a cogent case for what they're saying. It becomes more emotional than anything logical. I mean, you can be emotional. Boxing elicits emotions, but add some logic to it if you're going to put it down because you can reread it, you can proofread it, make sure it's going to go out there and sound reasonable. This isn't reasonable. It's just you talking.
Yeah, it's funny because we've gotten some really good feedback, some comments. Sometimes guys don't agree, but they tell us why they don't agree. And then we've had those clowns Tell us you don't know what you're talking about, or they call us clowns, or that's all they say. Okay, you dispute what we're saying. Give us the alternate. Tell us what we're wrong about. Tell us why we're wrong. State your argument. But again, they don't because they can't.
Yeah, and there was another one I'm going to paraphrase because I didn't go over to it, and I may just show the clip as they talk about it when I do the editing part. But there was one guy who went back to a video we made a long time ago, and I see people still going to it. It has thousands of views on it, so I understand that. It has a lot of comments, and it was Floyd Mayweather against Aaron Pryor. And I picked Floyd, and I think I might have said, or because I haven't seen it in a while, so I can't remember what was said. But even if it's paraphrased or said word for word, that, well, his record leaves something to be desired. And the guy throws his record up there and shows that he has one loss and all these knockouts. Well, a lot to be desired. And he kind of ridiculed it. And then I'm thinking to myself, okay, we know who Aaron Pryor is. We saw Aaron Pryor. Aaron Pryor was legendary. But let's be realistic about what we've seen. The fight that ended up making his career was against Alexis Arguello, a fighter who was smaller, moving up another weight class after previously moving up other weight classes, had nearly 80 fights in his entire career, so he was pretty much worn out, fighting a Tasmanian devil, which was kind of questionable of his training methods and the things he done in his corner. I'm not saying this. We know it is boxing lore and sometimes boxing fact. People know about these stories, and that's the name he has. Outside of that name, who else did he fight? Who else did he beat? You can get a nice record. Brian Nielsen had an excellent record. He was 49-0 as a heavyweight. No one ever talked about him, Rocky Marciano. They didn't until he finally lost. I forgot who he lost to, Dickie, someone else. But anyway, he ended up losing, so he's no longer 49-0. So what does a record matter, man? And I understand the name is attached to the record, and it is Aaron Pryor. And I know people attach more of the amateur record, like fighting Tommy Hearns and sparring with Sugar Ray Leonard, more than they look at his pro record. Bro, go by what we know. Go by what you see, which is his pro record and the people on that record. Kid Cervantes, are you serious? If you watch his fight against DeJuan Johnson, the late DeJuan Johnson, he had trouble there. Was knocked down twice. He ends up getting a questionable stoppage, but DeJuan wasn't lighting up the world either. So these are the names we're talking about that led to that fantastic record, numbers-wise, that you saw with the one loss. And then he still lost that fight. That's part of his record as well. Hey,
it's unfortunate that Hawk's biggest fight, or his two biggest fights, were against Arguello. Because there's the built-in excuse for Arguello. He's coming up in weight.
Yep.
So people can question, was he really challenged? Like, if he had to fight against Tommy Hearns as a professional, or if he got the fight he wanted against Sugar Ray Leonard, we would have seen the real Aaron Pryor, right?
Exactly.
We would have been able to gauge his true greatness against another great fighter without that built-in excuse. He'd have been the one going up. So if he was very competitive, if he beat Sugar Ray Leonard, well, now there are no more questions.
No questions.
But because he did not have that fight, those questions are out there. And that's unfortunate. But I'm trying to remember that video. I know the video because we did Floyd against, I think, 10 fighters.
A whole bunch of other fighters, yeah.
But I'm pretty sure I picked Floyd because I'm thinking I would pick Floyd because he's just too technically sound for Aaron Pryor, who's kind of, although he's rugged as hell, he's not particularly sound fundamentally. And that's the wrong kind of fighter to beat for Floyd, in my opinion.
Yep, and he's been knocked down several times. Styles do make fights, but you're a counterpuncher and you're able to find that opening in a fighter who's open quite often. And because his best defense is his offense, a fighter like Floyd has proven time and time again he's going to be able to pot shot you, and he's going to affect the way you continue to fight. You can continue to just take the pain and decide to keep coming in recklessly. He'll continue to pot shot you. He did to Maidana, a fighter who tried to overwhelm him. And I understand someone would say, but Maidana is not in the same as Aaron Pryor. Really? How do we know? Because of Arguello? Do you think that Maidana at 147, well, Arguello wasn't up there, but you think Maidana probably couldn't have given Arguello problems because with his swarming style that he used that night against Floyd? I mean, it's all up to the imaginations, but you can also be a bit reasonable and not get too caught up in the emotion of a fighter being great like Arguello or a fighter that's supposed to be great like Aaron Pryor. You know, you go by the what you've seen and it looked good, but against who? It still ends up with being Arguello. And if you go back to when he was a amateur fighter, you're talking about beating Tommy Hearns, who, by the way, as an amateur in 150 plus amateur fights, had 13 KOs, man. 13. This guy ends up being the hitman, one of the best one-punch knockout artists in the history of boxing. But as an amateur, he has 13 KOs because he doesn't necessarily know how to throw that punch effectively at that time, not getting the snap, the extension, because you're busy trying to get points to impress judges in 3 rounds. So you don't get a chance to settle down, get the extension, know the distance, the spatial awareness I talk about, to where know when to throw your punch, how to throw your punch, and where the most impact is going to come from that punch. You don't get a chance to do all of that as an amateur. So you see quite a few people knocking out guys a lot better when they get to the pros. I mean, some guys knock out guys in the amateurs and don't necessarily do the same thing in the pros. In fact, Gary Russell was one of those guys no one wanted to see as an amateur. He knocked a lot of guys out. In the pros, it doesn't look like that. Keith Thurman did it in pros and amateurs. But Gary Russell was a prime example of he knocked everybody out as an amateur. Not everybody, but a lot of people. But in the pros, not necessarily. But going back to Aaron Pryor, looking at his record, who the hell is on there? Arguello, Kid Cervantes, it ends there. And you were still KO'd by Bobby Joe Young. You fought 3 more times after Bobby Joe Young and got KOs and a TKO. So aside from that, you've done nothing in terms of the names that other great fighters have on their resumes to compare yourself to Floyd Mayweather, who beats him. I'm not saying Floyd knocks you out. Floyd beats you by points.
That's what I believe too. However, sometimes certain guys they have that one guy they can't beat. Vernon Forrest and Ricardo Mayorga. Like, conventional wisdom tells you there's no way Mayorga should have beaten Vernon Forrest twice. Maybe the first time he surprises him, right? He ran into a buzzsaw. But then he beat him in the rematch too. Like sometimes one guy's another guy's poison, man. We'll never know. And we can say Floyd is technically sound. You know, he'll pot shot you. He's too defensively responsible. But the Hawk could have been that one guy for him.
Yeah, but we've seen that kind of a style before against Floyd, or close to that kind of a style, and that was that first Maidana fight, which did pose more of a challenge. Now, did Maidana hit as hard?
I mean, I hear you on that, but I don't see Maidana in Hawk's class. I don't.
No, not in his class. I'm saying as close as you could get to that fight, to that style. At the same time, who else that because even the smaller guy, Arguello, was keeping up with Aaron Pryor. In fact, was ahead for a little while in that fight before he just was overwhelmed. And now we get with the skepticism that came with the bottle as well. We could talk about, I mean, I don't know. You can call it what you want. Whatever, snaps. That's what Bert Sugar had told me. And that's what he told the world as well. Other people talked about something for diarrhea. Who wants diarrhea during a freaking fight? Come on. I mean, you hear all these kinds of stories. But at least Floyd had fought, 48 different guys because he gave 2 guys rematches, to where you got to see so many different styles in which he was able to conquer. Now, you can talk about that some of them shouldn't have gone his way, whether it was the De La Hoya fight or whether it was the first Maidana fight or definitely the first Castillo fight that we actually judged ourselves. You can kind of come to the conclusion whichever way you can, but officially he still ends up getting that win. Now, what does Aaron Pryor do differently than what Floyd hasn't seen or in Floyd's preparation? Because, by the way, if you want to talk about that, that means that Aaron Pryor would be at 140 pounds, and Floyd was a lot more effective at 140 than he was at 147.
That's true. I'm just coming from the standpoint of the class of fighter. Like if we said, what if he fought Chavez at 135 or 130?
That's a problem.
We saw how he struggled with Castillo. Mm-hmm. And Castillo's nowhere near the class of Chavez.
That one time, because the second time he did beat Castillo. That first time we can acknowledge he did have that injury, but you still chose to fight. Boxing, you fight with the injury, or you choose not to, lose your opportunity at a title, maybe even lose your title. Yeah, but that second fight, he whitewashes him in the second fight without the injury. So there's something to be said about being injured and not being injured. The fight that we were talking about with Pitbull Cruz and Gervonta Davis, when Tank was injured his hand but continued to fight, was able to outbox him with one hand, and now people are clamoring for a second fight. But after this last fight that Pitbull had with Rayo, do you even care about another a healthy Tank fighting this time around? I don't know.
I don't, because I like Pitbull's only chance to beat Tank is by knockout. And he hit Tank with his best punches in the first fight. So the likelihood of him knocking out Tank in the rematch is highly unlikely.
With one hand.
So what's the point of a rematch?
No, I understand what people are thinking, because people see
the fight was good, but it wasn't that great. We're like, man, I want to see that again. You know what I mean? It was a good fight.
I want to see it more.
It was no all-time classic where a rematch is necessary.
No, I don't think that. Well, you know what? Because some people want to say that Pitbull possibly won, they completely ignore him, because that's how boxing fans are, the emotional ones in particular. They ignore that there was an injury, but that's also part of boxing, that part of the injury.
Look, I was going for Pitbull. I wanted him to beat Tank, but he didn't. He did not win that fight.
So now with Tank not getting injured, how does that fight play out? Because Pitbull isn't the hardest guy to hit. With two hands, I think Pitbull, and fast hands at that, Pitbull could get knocked out the second time around. Now, with Tank's record and seeing what Tank has done, that's a real possibility. People are acting like he was completely healthy, just like against Castillo the first time around. People act like Floyd was completely healthy. They completely ignore that there was an injury involved, or they claim it was an excuse, because that's how boxing fans are. If it's their guy, they make excuses for it. If it's not their guy, they'll make arguments against it. You know what I mean? So that's just how they go about it. But yeah, I think that Tank, if they had a rematch, he knocks out Cruz, because Cruz has been dying for that rematch. But he's also another one. I really beat him. Yeah, you beat an injured fighter. You're not saying that part. You know what I mean?
He thinks he beat Rayo.
No, come on now. We saw that ourselves. Like, bro, you got undressed. The Emperor has no clothes. Neither do you. He got undressed in that fight by a southpaw. And by the way, keeping on boxing for a little longer, you know what? I wasn't thinking about watching Berlanga and Canelo, because Canelo's not giving us what we want in terms of the Benavidez fight. But yo, the hype is getting me bored. The hype is tripping me out. You have Caleb Plant in the audience calling out, talking to Berlanga. Berlanga just badmouthed him, and Canelo's like, "Yo, bro, don't worry about it. I got him. I'm gonna take care of him for you." I'm like, "Yo, bro, that right there is the thing that's gonna make me buy this damn fight, man. I'm trying to protest against him, and I'm gonna end up buying this damn fight if he keeps it up."
I saw that, but something else I saw and heard was Canelo telling Berlanga, "You're nobody. You're nothing. You're easy."
So why you fighting him?
Exactly. What?
You kind of told me yourself, man. Come on.
And you got people saying Bud has no chance, and I'm not going to sell Bud short. He would definitely be the underdog if they fought, but to say he has no chance when Canelo hasn't looked good against guys like John Ryder, like Canelo, he hasn't. When was his last really great performance? When he knocked out 40-year-old Crusher. I mean, he was getting outboxed in that fight.
He was getting outboxed and he ended up winning.
So that's my thing. He can be outboxed. It's just whether or not Bud can avoid the one-hitter quitter.
You know what I mean? Because I think going into the fight, it's probably going to be a 3-1 favorite in Canelo's favor. And I said I'm still taking Bud, because my $100 can become $300, or my $1,000 can become $3,000 depending on the bet. I'm taking it because of that. And I know other people in the comments are like, "Yo, I'll take that bet." Bro, I'm not betting you, somebody online. Bro, I'm going to bet put my money in Vegas. Someone who's going to really pay back and not giving me promises and disappear. Yeah, but I'm thinking, and you look at boxing history and you think about, and I brought it up even on one of the comments, of how Billy Conn fought Joe Louis the first time they had fought. Joe Louis, I believe, was 199 or 198, somewhere around there. And Billy Conn was 168, I believe. And he was winning up until the 13th round, when he decided he wanted to try to knock out Joe Louis instead of listening to his corner of, "Yo, just keep boxing. You're doing it beautifully. Continue to box. Get this 15-round decision." But he was embarrassing Joe Louis all night long. He decided, let me close this out. And he gets caught. We don't have 13 rounders anymore. We have 12-round fights. In today's boxing, Billy Khan would have been the first heavyweight champion from a lighter weight, ever, instead of Michael Spinks beating up on Larry Holmes to get that honor back in 1985. So, yeah, I'm thinking that Bud could be in the same boat. Now, I mean, Canelo's power is going to mean something because Canelo can eat shots and he doesn't get enough credit for his chin. And he does have those heavy hands, but he doesn't have the movement. If Bud can keep that movement going and just get interested in being sharp and getting points, don't go for the knockout, I think it's really possible. No one thought Buster Douglas had this shot against Mike Tyson. Everybody that's in revisionist history talking nonsense about why Mike didn't win instead of more of what Buster did to win. I think, that kind of mindset. I think Bud has a chance. Probably not where the smart money goes, but at 3-1, it's my money. Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Yeah, I'd stay away from that. I wouldn't bet on either because I'd be rooting for Bud. I just wouldn't put money on him, and there ain't no way I'm gonna be rooting against my money. So no way I bet on Canelo.
I definitely rooting against my money, man. I'm gonna do it. Hey, the other part, man, is I'm never gonna bet more than I can afford to lose, like anybody else. If I can put $10 out there, I'll just put the $10 out there. If it's gonna be 100, it's gonna be 100. Whatever it is, I feel comfortable with losing, throwing it out there to charity, and hopefully it brings back friends. If I get the win, I'll deal with that. But until then, hey, it may not happen now anyway. Turkey Alashiki was like, yo, we don't want it anymore. I don't know. I think he's just talking anyway, but we'll see.